We're back with another session of the Sisters in Therapy podcast. Today we're going to be talking about introspection and self-awareness.
Yeah.
So introspection is the examination or observation of one's own mental and emotional processes, according to the definition that Dr. B gave me.
Yes.
Time alone with myself and looking inward is what I think of when I think of introspection.
Yeah.
Just me, a soul scan, kind of.
Right. I use like the first few like intro, right? That immediately means like it. I don't know if intro, but that's how I use the definition. The key word for me is intro, which means like inside out. So introspection is not always easy for a lot of people, but
At all.
yeah.
Okay. It could also be like the examination of your conscious thoughts and feelings. An act of self-awareness is another definition.
That's what comes up for me.
I thought about you when I read that
I would
definition.
say, yeah,
actually.
what comes up is definitely just that self-awareness whenever it comes to introspection. Literally self-aware across like all spectrums. Thoughts, feelings, place, time, people. How are you? How are your thoughts? How are you feeling? How is your body feeling in all these spaces?
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Do you think that kind of goes into like the first question about like what's been our relationship with introspection?
It could, for sure.
Yeah, but also maybe how do we practice introspection to then talk about our relationship with it.
Okay, go ahead.
Takesha, you go. I feel like you're the most introspect person I know.
I second that.
Okay, so the question is,
How do
I practice?
introspection?
Man, a lot of different ways. I feel like it just definitely depends on where I'm at any given time, but I journal a lot. I journal literally anytime I have a big feeling, a big thought about anything. And sometimes that's like free journaling throughout the day or in the evening, or sometimes it's journal prompts because my friends know me so well. I have a few journal books that have different type of just self-exploration questions about different times in life,
Okay.
about how I deal with different things. Sometimes
Okay.
it's meditation, it's just different things at different times.
Okay. And meditation is also a practice of introspection. How specifically how has journaling helped you throughout like processing anything, emotions, thoughts, even just experiences? How has it helped you?
It's helped a lot because it gives me so much clarity whenever I journal, because a lot of times I can tell that I have a big feeling, whether that's good or whether it's bad. I can tell I'm having big emotions. So sitting down and taking the time to journal about it, my thoughts, because I'm just a pen to paper girly, and once I write it down, the thoughts really just kind of flow, and then I find where they go, and it just gives me a whole lot of clarity. Like there was a time when I worked at Discovery, and something happened, and somebody had a seizure, and I was so scared in the moment, and I knew I had all these heightened feelings, but I just thought, okay, this was just a moment in time that was just wild. It was weird, but I couldn't sleep at night. Like at all. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And I think it was like a couple nights in a row. And I'm like, okay, I need to journal about this and see what's going on. And once I journaled about it, I realized that it had this connection to my past and a family member, and all of the stuff started coming back up for me. So it really just increase my awareness around it, and therefore my ability to be able to cope with it and see what I need to do to manage it.
Yeah.
It also, so what I took from it as a clinician is that the journaling helped you also do some tracking.
Right.
In which that helped you kind of recognize the trigger that was kind of coming up for you.
Right.
And that's kind of like the importance of journaling as it relates to managing our mental health.
Exactly.
I will say I don't journal a lot, but when I do journal, it's because I feel something. And I think sometimes people struggle with journaling because they don't really feel like they, like I don't have nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, you do.
Yeah.
Let the emotion guide you to the journaling. When you feel something, journal. I'm not saying do a Dear Diary Moesha type thing, because no, you might not have nothing to say every day. What have you guys kind of found when you recommend journaling to your clients? Like what is typically their like responses to that?
A lot of my clients have said, "Oh, I used to, but I don't do it anymore." Or, "No, I'm not doing that, Dr. B. Like, I'm straight on that." Like, it's
a lot of mine are not pen and paper.
Yeah.
People, they're like, I'm not gonna write.
yeah. So like usually, that gives me an opportunity to help them explore other ways to journal. One of my favorite ways to journal is when I'm driving in the car. I just do voice memos. I just record as I'm
That's a big one
driving.
for
That's an
people.
easier one. I tell clients that. Plus, we're often on our phone all the time. You could simply type your journal entry. One of the main concerns for a lot of people is privacy when journaling. But there are plenty of apps, because people use them for pictures. There are plenty of apps that you can find that look like something else, but it is like a journal.
But if we are adults, who we hiding our journals from?
There have been people where their partners are reading their journal, which is wild and super violating. Don't ever do that.
Read your partner's journals.
No.
Because you might find something you don't want to find.
Exactly.
What?
So don't do that. But I have seen that as a barrier, and I do actually tell a lot of clients, because I think we're in that time now.
The privacy thing?
No,
Yes.
not the privacy thing, but they don't want to write, but they will do the voice notes or voice
Yeah.
memos, and they say that helps them process too. I think just because it's an intentional way that they're trying to express.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then you know what? I take that back, because I do journal a lot, because I have a note. I mean, just a phone full of notes here. But I am taking a pledge to start back writing pen to paper type
It's super
journaling.
nostalgic.
Why do you
honestly.
think it's different for you, or what makes you kind of want to go back to that process specifically?
I'm not really sure why I want to go back to it in regards to you sure it's nostalgia, but it also hurts my hand. That's why I put it in
Carpal tunnel is a thing.
That's why I put it in my phone notes. But I think that I like looking at my ugly handwriting, if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. Now,
No, I do. I like going back
Brittany
to
said that makes sense.
No, it does, because my
I like looking at
handwriting
my
is very
handwriting.
neat at
Mine
the
is
beginning,
not.
and then at the end, I'll be tired and it's super sloppy. But I still be journaling.
Yes. So just going back and looking at my own handwriting as I talk about my feelings, my thoughts, my self-awareness, I think that's going to be helpful for me in regards to journaling, because I do have a lot of stuff in here.
Yeah. Ooh, this is a super random question, but like, I know you write a lot, and I know you're getting into writing back, but does your handwriting determine like where you're at in that moment? Like, do you find it less sloppy if you're like in a calmer space, or like if you're angry? Like, does it? It's a super random question, but I just want.
No, it's a question that's appropriate because you're a human behaviorist, but I would say that that's probably why I want to write again too, because I feel like sometimes when the letters are like I can tell when it's rushed versus so if I am sitting down and I am trying to create something, the writing is different than when I'm trying to express like an emotion, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Because when I'm trying to create something, I'm really thinking, and so I'm more so taking my time versus when I'm expressing, it's a little bit sloppier.
Got
100%.
Okay. Have you noticed
Somebody
it?
done pissed me off.
I don't. For the most part, right? Whenever I do write when I'm pissed off, but I think my writing is the same. I think just because I go to the space intentionally with you need to sit down and like chill and see where you're at with this. So my writing for the most part looks the same because I know why I'm there. If it's like impulsive or quick or in the moment, the only thing that's different about it is that maybe it's more bullet points versus like full thought out things. And so it's something that like, oh, you need to come back to this.
Gotcha.
But you ain't got time for it right now. And that's a little sloppy and it's a little shorthand. But other than that.
Journaling ain't never stopped you from slapping somebody?
Oh, probably a few times.
And it's like,
Be out here saving motherfuckers.
Because I be in my car like, oh, I'm about to talk myself till I get back home because
I mean,
I'm pissed off.
It done saved a couple people from getting cussed out too.
Or long text messages. Yeah, I don't have to write that down a few times.
That's a perfect segue because, ladies and gentlemen, before you send a long text message, get into a state of introspection first before you send a text.
You know what I've done both?
Why it's important.
I have done both. The nerves were calm, but the anger was still there.
Okay.
It is what it is.
Two things can be true.
Yes.
But do as she say, not as she do.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But no, I think it's what you say, T, why it's important to talk about this.
Why is introspection so important?
So that you don't wake up the next day feeling ashamed, guilt, or regret. Like, oh, I can't believe I said that. Now you just feeling down because you said you word vomit to somebody else.
Yeah, and now
check
you have
with
to
you first,
right? And now you have to explain your action, and now you got to apologize for it. I ain't never had to do that, but some people do. I don't know. But one of the things that I wanted to mention as far as barriers to introspection is people also have a fear of self-discovery too. Yes. Like what will I find out about myself? Because journaling it's meant to be vulnerable, right? It's meant to be a mirror to our lives.
I have seen that as a big barrier, the self-discovery part, but also then I'm going to be stuck with this truth
Yeah.
after I get done writing. And there's nothing I can, like, I almost can't deny it because it's right here in front of me. And people don't
Exactly.
want to go back to seeing the reality. It's almost like they would rather not live in it.
Okay. I mean, I do believe that people like to lie to themselves. I say
Oh,
that
for
all the
sure.
time. We struggle with being honest with ourselves.
For sure.
Why?
I
The
think
tr-
we don't. I don't think we want to believe that we're truly flawed and that we have some insecurities or some mishaps. I think it is easier, air quotes, for people to live in the clouds.
Or say that it's just the way I am.
Or it's just the way that I am, right? So it's like, what does it mean for me now that it's finally on paper, right? At least for some people, it feels like it's official. But I think people in that thought process, they're too black and white, right? It just is, right? You had an experience. This is how it made you feel.
It's just easier.
Yeah, for sure.
It's easier to manage a lie than it is to accept the truth.
Yeah,
I think it is. And,
it is.
And if I'm working with people in therapy, most of the time we have people who come see us who tell us exactly what they need to be doing to be well, yet they struggle with it
This is true.
all the time. And as a therapist, we just gonna keep asking the same questions, trying to change your perspective or be a change agent in a different way. But at the end of the day, that work you running from, that is the pill. My favorite, that is the pill, sis, and bro.
Yeah.
But people, it's hard. I think it's just hard to sit with the truth. It just really
Yeah.
is. The truth means that maybe we have to admit that something has hurt us,
Right.
someone has abused us. We have to admit that we have hurt somebody else. We have abused them. That's hard for people.
I agree, and I get that, and I think that that's valid. And so I also get the initial assumption that telling ourselves a lie and even living a lie feels like an easy alternative. But again, they come to us, so it's actually not an easy alternative because it keeps disrupting your life and your relationships. So
true.
you're telling yourself that it's the easier alternative, but in reality, if you check the facts of your relationships in your life, you'll see that it's actually not
No, that's facts.
the easier path.
That's facts.
That is true.
Now, does that mean there's a lack of awareness then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think they probably are looking at it as a black and white, or maybe like a lose-lose. Like it doesn't feel good to like acknowledge it or do the work, but like you said, they think that this is easier. It's almost like we don't have that imagination or we don't have that awareness that it could be different or that it could be
Or
better.
we don't have hope.
Yeah.
And our job is to instill hope in the 1st session. That's something that we do. But also there are people who come to therapy and sometimes they come alone and they should be coming with their partners, and then the partner will not believe in the fact that sitting down and doing a scan of how I feel and how I think and behave is worth talking about, because they truly don't think that breaking these things down will produce change in their lives or their relationships.
That makes me sad.
I know, but it's a thing.
It is.
And we have people that we see who come
I
to therapy
know.
for people in their lives who won't go to therapy.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes me sad. Because even when you say that, I know we talked about this before, but like when you say that to your partner who's wanting to improve certain things, then what are you
Right.
saying about this relationship? Are you saying that we can't grow? Like you think that this is just it and this you're okay with
Some
that?
of them, and because maybe they've seen things that have been so much worse,
Yeah.
they feel like this is okay.
Wow.
Okay.
And a lot of times people also don't feel like they have the time to journal.
Oh yeah, they don't
They don't
people
wanna sit
have-
down.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
rightfully so. People are busy. We are in a rat race. We are on cruise control through life. Taking the time to journal for what? I'm just gonna feel like this again tomorrow.
So how do y'all talked a little bit about how I practice introspection. What are y'all's processes for practicing introspection, and maybe what are some of your signs that let you know that you should be?
Signs that I should be practicing introspection.
Yeah, or that you need to kind of like pause and take a look in.
I think that anytime that I have a really big opinion that kind of goes against somebody else's opinion, that's probably when I do a lot of introspection. When I'm debating with somebody, or if I'm showing up to a space and I am trying my best to be who I am authentically and not fit into like the shape of what everybody else is being in the room, that I really that's probably the most that I really introspect, because I'm like, I am trying to make sure that I'm showing up who I want to be. So when I leave this space, I don't go home thinking, dang, like I said too much or I said too little, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Like, so basically, like, trying to make sure that I am walking in authenticity is how I practice introspection. And then also sort of reading the room and kind of recognizing, like, is this part of me going to be embraced, or is this a part that I should kind of dim just a little bit because I need to read the room a little bit? It's not going to be welcomed here, because a big part of practicing introspection for me is recognizing not to put myself in harm's way, if that makes sense. So also I use introspection to protect me emotionally,
Right.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
because since I feel like that I'm a very conscious person, and because I am conscious, I could probably find a problem with everything. I have to be careful with that, because then I'm going into spaces and I'm like being critical of people because people be stupid, and then I'm like, okay, you can't really be mad at these people because this is just who they are. This is what they know. You're choosing to be in this space. You may want to return to this space, so let's just tone it down just a little bit.
So I hear all of your signs of like what lets you know you need to do it, and even some of the questions you're asking yourself or what you're exploring. How do you explore that though? Is that just you sitting and giving
an
yourself
internal
quiet time to
dialogue.
think, or what does it?
Sometimes I have these internal dialogues while I'm out in public, while I'm here in the space. But most of the time, I'm probably gonna call you to see if I'm tripping.
Okay, so call a friend, phone a friend, phone a friend.
So I call you.
Lifeline.
I sometimes journal, or I know what book to go back to validate me as a Black woman who feel the way that I feel, because most of the times the way that I feel is valid, because it's not popular, but it is valid. So I know what book to go back to say I ain't tripping. I'm validated right here. It's gonna be a Bell Hooks book or any book you done recommend in the book club. Somebody done said how I feel already. So that's how I practice it.
Okay,
for sure.
phone
But
a friend, question yourself.
But we're
And reference a
specifically
book.
talking about like thoughts and feelings. But introspection for me is also my physical health. So I journal and log my food as well. I track my food and I track my workouts. That's also a part of journaling and introspection for me.
Yeah. No,
So
it is. That's
that helps
good.
me hold myself accountable in my physical health and then my mental health. All the it's all connected.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, nice.
I think for me, my mom, she definitely instilled in me like critical thinking skills and being a deep thinker. I think I've always been a deep thinker. So I think introspection started early in some way, whether I knew it or not, because I'm open to having like deep conversations. And so like, I don't do well with conversations that don't have any meaning or have any, is it sustenance? I think might be the word. But I think as a result of me already being a deep thinker, I don't mind kind of sitting with myself. It could be a little uncomfortable sometimes, especially if I've done something wrong or my actions may have impacted somebody. But there's always a feeling physically, like, I don't feel settled.
Yes.
Something's happening. It always happens physical, where like either my palms get sweaty or my heart rate is increasing or like I'm a bit too shifty. I don't think it's that obvious to other people, but I could feel it, right?
I was going to say, and when did you start? Because I feel like that's a new skill. I don't feel like that's something that has ever been taught. That bodily awareness and that mind and body connection to be aware of how your body feels in different spaces at different times.
Yeah.
So how did you learn that? And is it something that you just kind of naturally do, or?
I think honestly, I really do think it started in middle school for me, because I used to be a super anxious kid and I used to sweat a lot and you could see it on my clothes. I would be super embarrassed. And I went to the doctor to get some solution to put under my underarm. So like physically, I would always show signs of being anxious. I ain't journal about it. I just wanted people to leave me alone so I could just be left alone. So like, I think the physicality of it started very early. I don't think I was able to say like, oh, I have anxiety. I don't think it was that, but I think the physical symptoms started early. And then as I got older, I'm like, I feel something. So journaling certainly does help. Sometimes I even record myself on my computer. If I'm like just sitting at the computer, I'll just record a video. I found a video. There was the video right before I defended my dissertation. I totally forgot that I recorded it. And it was almost like foreshadowing, like you're gonna pass, you're gonna do it. And I was like, I almost cried.
Affirmations.
Right, like girl. I'm like, who is this girl before she's here now? But I think I love to know myself. I'm usually, which is why I got into Legos. Like I love to be curious about myself. And so like I like to dedicate those spaces to myself. But yeah, I think introspection has been a big thing for me. And one of the main ways that I do that is journaling. And also, like you were saying, like being in good spaces. That way, the introspection is also welcomed, if that makes any sense. But
Yes.
Yeah.
What else?
Um,
I like the definition of the examination of one's own conscious thoughts. I think that one resonate with me the most because those conscious thoughts are always available to me. I didn't ask for these thoughts. I
Listen.
didn't ask for this. I don't know how to turn them off. I don't know how to not call people out for dumb stuff. But I've tried. I'm trying to do better. Because it's
You're
not,
a therapist.
Is that
so you
what's going
can't
on?
automatically call out everything. No, I mean,
But is that why it's come to me to be like, oh, you know what? That's dumb. And you, no?
no, I think that maybe it's just you. But
Okay, dumb is not the right word. That is mean and that is ignorant. Is probably the right language I should be using. That's most of the time that's what I'm thinking when people are talking. Like I'm like, bro, that is so mean. You don't even know it. But people would think that I'm mean because I'm honest. But people are mean because they're literally being mean to people who are different than them.
yeah.
True.
So I'm the person that calls attention to this. So I'm probably the person that they think is mean because I'm calling attention to like you're being mean to such and such.
But I think that's a part of the self-awareness, and one of the benefits and necessities of self-awareness is also the emotional intelligence. It's because you can be aware of these things, but it's also important to be intentional with how you communicate these things and
Yes, that's
how
my
you pay
problem.
attention to.
My delivery probably is my problem.
So that's the other side of the self-awareness and being conscious about your thoughts.
You agree with me a little too much, first of all.
But you know, I agree with you 1000%. And I think what people underestimate is like self-awareness allows for all parts of you to exist.
Yes.
Right. So like for you, if you recognize her, then you're like, all right, girl, I need to chill. Like even for me, all right, girl, you need to chill. Like, but that doesn't mean I'm a terrible person.
No.
It just means I recognize parts of myself that might not be likable, and that's fine.
But first of all, I'm 100% okay with being disliked. That's rule number one. I don't care. But second of all, I think that I've been in a space with all of y'all when some things have come up because gangsta B surfaces sometimes.
I'm sure things. That's the thing that I even.
It caught me off guard the first time.
What?
And just only the first
Gangsta
time.
B.
Oh yeah, don't try.
Because there's been more than one time.
Don't be disrespectful. That's my pet peeve. That's all I gotta say.
So I'm like, I think that we've all kind of been in spaces where we're like, all right, something. Like we're feeling a little
absolutely.
shitty.
I'm very patient.
Yeah, you are.
I'm very patient until you start being disrespectful, and then I'm not journal about that after. I'm actually very satisfied. It's nothing for me to reflect on. Me going off was me letting it off. So
And me wondering if we need to take earrings off or are we
I
about
don't
to
ever
be
get
okay?
that far. I say what I need to say, and my point is made. We're getting off track.
I don't do any of this.
That's okay.
I don't know what they're talking about.
This is her all the time. She's never angry.
But in my mind,
Anyways.
But I think we should definitely should we segue into the different types of introspection?
Yes. So we kind of stated the introspection is basically like take an examination of your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, and also there's two types of ways that this happened. One, the self-reflection, which is what we kind of just spent the first 20-something minutes talking about. This is a positive form of introspection because you are using this to attribute meaning and significance to your thoughts and your feelings.
Yes.
And you're learning from these things and you're becoming more self-aware. And then you have the self-rumination. And rumination obviously means that you are taking the time to obsess over your shortcomings and the negative things about yourself and the problems in your life.
why is this not ideal?
Because it leads to you doubting yourself. It increases symptoms of anxiety and increases symptoms of depression. It leads to low self-esteem. It's a
Shame spiral.
yes. It's a whole cycle of shame. Everything you just said. So people do sit down and they do think, but they were saying that the different personalities in different people, you're either gonna self-reflect or you're gonna self-ruminate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can y'all think of some of the reasons why your clients may have been prone to ruminating?
It might go back to childhood for a lot of people where like they didn't get a lot of positive affirmations or encouragement, and so like honestly that might be the only thing that they know.
Okay.
Or that their thought process automatically defaults to. There's a lot of filtering. They're filter. I don't typically like to use negative or positive thoughts, but for the sake of this combo, a lot of people's filtering is negative. So like
a lot of our thoughts that come to us sometimes are unhelpful or negative. I don't use negative and positive that much either, but I would say 80% of our thoughts are unhelpful.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. And they naturally occur. I think we talked about this before. Just because
naturally occur. You're
they're
right.
trying to protect us from things that clearly your body and your mind is saying that this thing didn't work for you. It didn't turn out well. So how do you make sure that you don't get in this place again, or how do you avoid this moving forward?
I would say that this is a problem for at least probably 90% of my caseload.
Oh, of
self-examination.
Yeah.
It is a huge problem, and it is a cycle of therapy sessions of empowering and evaluating thoughts, and not empowering the thoughts, but empowering them. Correct. And trying to teach them tools to learn how to not let the thoughts get the best of them, but you have to fight back. You have to fight back.
That's really
what I be telling them too.
That's really what it is.
Yeah, it's the inner critic, right?
Yes.
And why we have an inner critic, I don't know. Why we got to have an inner critic?
Survival. We have this base survival instinct that everybody has. Sometimes it helps us. Sometimes it doesn't. For me, I see it come up a lot when my clients have perfectionism, and so they ruminate on all of the things that they do imperfectly. I also see it come up quite a bit as a form of punishment or like tough love. Yep. They feel like they have to really punish themselves or continuously say these things over and over again in order to almost motivate them to do something differently, even though that doesn't work.
It never works.
That's shaming people into progress type thing.
Yes. But they do it to themselves because they've been taught.
It's the cornerstone of our culture, you know, like shaming people into this is probably seen a lot with athletes. Anytime you're trying to reach a goal, is to criticize yourself so you can go harder or something like that, or team no sleep. None of this is helpful.
It never works, guys. I think we really need to stop. Like, it's not nice. It's also not fair to yourself. Like, if it worked, would you be here? You know, like, would you be sitting in front of me if it really worked?
But the thing is, though, like when you look at the macro society, it's easy for people to self-ruminate right now. You're comparing yourself to everybody in the world on social media. People look like they have their lives together. So you're comparing yourself to all these people. And then you have this economy, right, where you can't afford certain things. So I probably found myself self-ruminating probably like 2021, 2022, things started getting shifty. I'm like, I can't even afford my cost of living. Like, what have I done with my life? Literally started then like, what am I doing with my life? Why I picked this major? Literally, a whole cycle of it. Like, groceries are high. Like, why can't I got 3 degrees? Why the fuck can't I afford eggs?
I think I wonder too if it facts, but I wonder too if people have to get out of this thought process that like their life now is a consequence to, or that they deserved this type of lifestyle. I think. And it's easy to compare when you see the shiny thing on social media, but like honestly, for a lot of people, it's just pure luck. Like being in a relationship, they just so happen to meet a person and they were ready at the same time. Like your success in a relationship doesn't come right after that. Sometimes it's just pure luck. And I think people feel behind, but I have to encourage my clients, you're not behind. Your life is just simply different. We're all living different lives, and what you see on social media is just the finishing product. Or the finished product.
Or a myth.
Or a myth.
But also, you know, it's a part of the human struggle to compare ourselves to other people, but also to want more out of life, or to like want nice things and want something better. Yeah. It's part of the human nature to yearn for that, for sure. So in therapy, though, specifically when I have clients who self-ruminate, and they have all of these thoughts, because sometimes when you self-ruminate, there's a lot of thoughts. Like they're coming. And so one of the things that I do is try to help my clients break down each thought. This is going to require some form of journaling, whether it's in your notes or what. And sometimes when they come into my therapy room, I literally give them a notepad and tell them to write down the 10 thoughts you've been having all day. Just write them down. And so this is a thought tracking and thought logging. And so we're going to break down the thoughts into smaller parts and make a plan, and we're going to evaluate each thought one by one. And then we're going to evaluate them into healthier thoughts, because these thoughts are here for a reason. Exactly. We're not saying that they're not valid. We're saying, okay, they're trying to tell you something. Exactly. So what's the plan of action we're going to take?
Exactly. Because it really is anxiety.
It really is. Yeah.
Anxiety.
It is anxiety. Yes. It's trying to save you from something or prepare you for something. So my job is to help them see, okay, your thoughts are not your enemy. You can do this. And how can you do this? Get a pen and paper and write them hoes down.
Okay, so you
Not
teach them how to
just
be
writing hoes.
practical ways on how to be constructive.
Practical ways to feel like they have power. Yes. Because a lot of times we feel like I'm all over the place. I'm all over the place. Just take a second and read,
Slow
baby.
down.
It's okay.
And
And that's one
journaling
of the
is
benefits of journaling.
Yes,
it
it's
is.
slowing
You're all over
down.
the place. I tell people all the time, though, because part of the ruminating that I hear my clients talk about is almost like their thoughts are like on a record that go over and over and
Yes,
over
hamster
again in their
wheel.
mind. Yes, that won't stop. Like, also, I think that's another way of your brain trying to remind you of these things
Yes.
so that you don't forget to tend to them. If you write them down, maybe if you can see them on paper, your brain doesn't have to work as much to remember them. You know they're right there. You know you can go back to them, and you have a plan to go back to them.
Facts.
Right,
That's how
exactly.
you unravel. And we call that in CBT thought tracking or logging your thoughts.
Exactly.
But also make sure that if you're setting goals, you're setting reasonable goals.
Thank you. Goals with flexibility.
We can't hold ourselves like to the point of like there's no flexibility in how I achieve this goal or how the process and when I get there. Always be willing to like adjust something.
Exactly. Pivot.
Pivot. Yes, the ability to pivot has helped me a lot because it used to be a struggle child. Unless it was on the basketball court, then I can pivot. Okay.
I know that's right, footwork.
Yes, Lord.
I was gonna say something. Oh yes. What? Did I miss
Growing
it?
girl.
It's an inside joke that I'm not a part of.
She been coming for me all session.
But
Don't
yeah,
make no
perfectionism
sense.
is also a barrier to journaling.
How
People,
so?
people think that their journaling should be a very specific way. So like if it's not right, if my handwriting's not right,
Oh, they
if-
overthinking it.
yeah, it's a lot of.
Or we
I've
gotta
had-
have a pretty journal.
Yeah.
Or they do worry that somebody's gonna read it. Or I know I get this a lot with my artistic people because they can like art journal.
Oh yeah.
And draw pictures and
that.
things like that. And they're like, but if they're artists or they're creative people, they're like, I can't create art that's not perfect. Like, it's a journal. Ain't nobody gonna see it.
Exactly.
This is just for
The
you.
art is for you, and imperfect art probably is what's selling the most.
It really is. They just throwing paint up there and be selling it for
No,
$1
to
million.
them, it's something. To them,
Yeah,
the girl sit throwing paint up there.
they do. I've seen it. I've seen it on YouTube. They just be $1 million.
Keep in mind that they're artists and they sensitive about
About they shit. Yes. Another barrier to journaling for what I especially seen with my clients is inconsistency. But I've had to help them like reframe that. As far as like if you do it once a week, that is still consistent. It doesn't have to be every day. I have had clients who like literally tap out from journaling because they expected themselves to be able to do it every single day, and that just hasn't been realistic for a lot of people's lifestyles.
And that's the same thing that happened with people when they start anything new, any type of healthy
Yeah.
lifestyle.
Yeah.
They if they don't repeat it 2 days in a row, they're like, I messed up. It's okay, baby. We gonna get it too. We just gotta pace ourselves. It's all about your breathing.
Exactly.
A wise man once said.
I see that a lot, literally with every skill. And I'm like, even if they do it great for 2 months and then they get thrown off, I'm like, this is just life.
Right.
I need you to come to terms with this is going to happen over and over and over and over again because
But-
life is going to keep happening
Life will
and
life.
requiring something different of you.
Exactly.
But if you want to be consistent, then you need to tap into a form of discipline that works for you. It doesn't have to be nothing too strenuous, but if you want to be consistent with something and keep this proactive approach to wellness, you will have to have some type of discipline.
You will, but also you got to know that it's going to look different. If you work out in the morning or you write in the morning, but then you have to now take kids to school in the morning, or you have to do this other thing, you might have to move it to the evening, or you might have to do a
Right.
dance class. Like, it might look different. It's not going to look the
Yeah.
exact same way.
right.
Or you could tap into like your circle and see who can help you with these things so that you can keep your routine. That's an option as well. But if none of that is working, then you problem solve and do it a different way. Well, I guess we don't really speak enough about the skill of problem solving
Ooh.
because
That's another
Yeah, that's a
episode.
good one.
but that's
That
something
is
that's
another
needed.
episode.
Oh,
When
absolutely.
you're faced with many different challenges, you have to sit down and figure out how to problem solve. And
sure.
that does not happen without journaling.
Yeah.
Or writing down. And when we say journaling, though, we're not really talking about writing a whole essay. You can really
Right.
write what you want to write. It can be
Exactly.
words. It can be phrases.
I have told clients that for sure.
When I don't have time to journal, I bullet journal. A lot of my clients bullet journal or like do a brain dump, which is really essentially just pulling out a piece of paper and all of the random thoughts that you have at any given time, whether it's a to-do list, whether it's how you're feeling, who's coming up for you. jot
I
it
do
all
that.
down in bullet points, super quick, easy, and it kind of clears your mind.
And sometimes for a lot of people, they get the journals with the journal prompts, and that's usually something else that I suggest, because sometimes people are intimidated on a blank sheet of paper. They don't really know where to start. So usually
That
I will
stops
send
them
them like a worksheet or two. Huh?
I said that stops them too.
Yeah.
The not knowing where to start.
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh, I got something for you. Don't even worry about it.
Exactly. I always
I
start
got
with the
3 prompts
gratitude
right here.
Right. And I really love the gratitude journal that I send clients, because I usually help, like, especially with mindfulness, like expressing gratitude is a part of mindfulness. And so one of my favorite worksheets is sending the gratitude journal, and I like it because it gives different type of journal prompts to express gratitude, versus for some people it's super monotonous to say I am grateful for blah blah blah. Like, it gives you something surprising that made me happy today, blah blah blah. So journal prompts can be a helpful tool in journaling too.
They have plenty on Pinterest.
Yes, plenty on Pinterest. Five Below got some cute ones, but if you don't want to spend money, definitely Pinterest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are your why is introspection necessary as we wrap up this session? Why is it necessary for us to kind of engage in that type of practice?
I think it builds a deeper self relationship. I think it gives you a moment to pause. It gives you understanding. It gives you clarity.
Okay.
Like you said, and I think it also builds self trust. I think
Self trust is big.
Yes, and I think people reserve vulnerability in the space with me as their therapist, but I want them to practice that outside of that 1 hour that they get with me, right? So I think it ensures self trust, practicing vulnerability in a way, and clarity, really.
Okay. Okay. What about you, Takesha?
For me, it's definitely the clarity piece, but also definitely just a better relationship with myself and a really intentional relationship with myself, which I think is really important, because I tell my clients all the time, and I'm aware of it myself, is I'm different. In high school, I thought I had it figured out. In undergrad, I thought I had it figured out. I knew how I thought, who I wanted to be, all these things. Then
Okay.
my master's program, I was a new version of myself. And I'm like, okay, now I got it. After that point, I realized, okay, you don't ever just fully got it. This is who you are today. You need to
Right.
make this a practice of constantly checking in with yourself and knowing yourself and learning who you are. And so I think that that's very important for me individually, but also important for how I navigate all of my relationships. It's important for how I decide to do therapy, the different approaches I take, what models I use, how I show up in the therapy room, also how I show up in my relationships. It helps with my own just emotional awareness, emotional regulation. So whenever I am triggered, or I know what situations to avoid, or I know if something comes up for me, I automatically know this is a thing, or this reminds me of this. And I can regulate my emotions. I don't have to go off on nobody, or I don't have to respond in any kind of way, which I think I'm only able to do because of the relationship that I have with myself and the awareness that I have.
Love that.
Okay.
What
about you, Sadie?
I have
Dr.
nothing-
MJ?
I have nothing to add.
Oh,
That's it?
No, you guys really summed it up perfectly. There's no need for us to keep up repeating what each other are saying.
Because we all smart.
I think you wrapped it up perfectly, Takesha and Brittany. So I don't really have nothing to add.
Okay.
So with that, I hope you guys take something from this session about taking inventory of your thoughts, your feelings, and journaling about them, and keeping the journal in a safe space or putting it in your phone. Either way it go, these ladies kind of summed up how this practice of introspection can make you a better off person to yourself and to those around you.
Absolutely.
Because it's really important to be in spaces where people want you to be there because they like the energy you're bringing. You like the
Right.
energy they're bringing. Just help us overall.
For sure.
Okay. So with that being said, go love yourself.
Go love yourself.
go love yourself.